Hey up everybody, welcome back to the I'll Do Cycling YouTube channel, where today I am going to be previewing the E3 Saxobank Classic. It's probably the most important warm-up race for the Ronde van Vlaanderen, which takes place not this weekend but the weekend after, so a lot of these riders are going to be coming into some very good form, so therefore, we're going to be looking at some previous results over the last few weeks and seeing kind of who's trending in the right direction. Of course, we've got last year's winner, Kasper Asgreen. He's on the start list and he is one of those riders who is looking in very good form. And I guess we'll start with Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl. Of course, with Asgreen, with Lampaert, Senechal and Stibar, that is kind of their quartet of kind of very solid classics riders. For me, I think that Senechal and Asgreen are the ones who look the best at the moment. We saw Asgreen looking good at Tirreno. He finished 4th in that opening TT. And then also at Stalladi, he finished in 3rd place. But for the rest of Tirreno, he didn't really do too much, which indicates to me that he was taking it easy and, tapering nicely for these classics races coming up. And then Senechal we just saw coming in 14th place at Milano San Remo, but he was caught behind a crash on the descent of the Poggio down into San Remo. So it could have been arguably better than that. So the fact that he wasn't intentionally really peaking for Milano San Remo just shows how good Senechal's form is at the moment. Next to them, we've got Jumbo-Visma, again with likely two options in Wout van Aert and Christophe Laporte. The reason really why Wout van Aert didn't do too great at San Remo seems to be because he followed too many attacks of Pogacar, and then also he kind of just ended up looking at Mathieu van der Poel quite a lot. By the looks of things, that tends to happen when those two are in the same race. Van der Poel, of course, isn't in this race, so perhaps Wout van Aert will be a bit more of a favourite going into this, and also with his improved classics team in comparison to last year, he'll have a lot more support deeper into the race, especially from the likes of Tige Benoot and Christophe Laporte. But Laporte also gives him a nice second option perhaps, because if everybody's looking at Wout van Aert, then Christophe Laporte can go into a move and Wout van Aert can kind of mark for moves behind. That's a very kind of good option that they can now employ. Victor Kampenaerts, Velocity Sudal looked pretty good at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad earlier this year. And then you've got, Girmay for Intermarché. That could be a bit of a surprise. Mohoric, the winner of Milano San Remo. We haven't really seen him do too many cobbled races. Yes, he did do Omloop and Kern earlier this year, but the last I saw Mohoric doing cobbled races was back in 2019, I think it was. And he wasn't particularly great at them there, but of course things have changed since then. He's a much improved rider from when he was then. EF Education Easy Post, they've got Michael Valgren, who seems to be coming into some good form at the moment as well. Yes, Milano San Remo 25th, but again, I think he was caught behind that crash, or maybe he was the one who crashed on the Poggio descent. I'm not overly sure. Todd Pidcock is not here for the Ineos Grenadiers, so I guess it could be Navarez or Van Baal. Of course, Van Baal won Dwars Vlaanderen last year. Then we've also got Søren Andersen for Team DSM, looked very good at Milano San Remo. He finished in 7th place of that race and also was very good at Paris, so can he continue that for kind of another week, that peak of form? It's very possible. I think that he's more likely to attack from further out, which definitely suits this style of racing. Arguably the strongest, if not one of the strongest teams in the race is from Trek Segafredo. Stuyven, Turns, Pedersen, Simmons, Kirsch, Hoel and Vergaard. That's an incredibly strong team, likely focused around Mads Pedersen just because of how good he looks at the moment. Of course, Stuyven and Quinn Simmons, I expect them to go deep into the race and support him well there. But Dan Hall is another great option for them. I reckon he'll get quite far in. He's shown some really good form this year. Whether Pedersen might favour a sprint, so whether Trek might just try stitch the race together so that Pedersen can win from a sprint, that is kind of going to be quite hard to do. So I expect them to try and maybe get Simmons and Stuyven up the road to mark moves and anchor them and bring them back so that Pedersen can win from a sprint. But other than that, you've got maybe Sagan and Rasmus Tiller has some kind of the Pro Continental teams as well. Yeah, other than that, I feel like that's most people covered. Of course, they're going to be the profile that they go over. More than likely, it will break up in the combination of the Paterberg and the Ile de Clermont. That comes about 50 kilometres to go. And then the last climb is the Tegenberg, which is where we saw Wout van Aert attacking last year and then getting counter-attacked and then subsequently getting dropped from the leading group. There is a flat section which will either be a point where teams can form together to try and bring back a move, or it'll just be a point where the move's gone and we'll know who's already going to be contesting the finish in the last 15 kilometres. It'll just be one of those two kind of scenarios. And the weather for Friday looks really nice actually, 63 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in degrees Celsius, but it's going to be mostly sunny and a very kind of light wind of less than 10 miles an hour. So very few chances of there being crosswinds on this day. So it's going to be a fairly simple. How I see it going down is really, I think that Quick-Step are going to be pretty keen for a win, because I don't think they haven't been kind of winning as much as they perhaps want to. UAE are really kind of pushing the boat out to them quite a bit, and I expect really them to be instigators of the attacks, largely with Asgreen and Senechal. For me, I do think that Senechal could do a very good job here, and if he gets away in a move with Wout van Aert or Christophe Laporte and maybe one or two other riders from like other teams, and they work together quite well, they could easily hold off on like a group behind being led mostly, I predict, by Trek. I think that Trek will kind of favour just trying to bring Mads in for a sprint, and therefore that group of Senechal or Asgreen and then Wout van Aert and Laporte will, quite easily hold off the group behind. But other riders I expect to maybe get into that move, maybe like Sander Wolf at AG2R Citroën. I think that Valgren sneakily could do quite well in this race. Just because he seems to build quite well for kind of the big occasions. And I know that E3 isn't like the biggest race, but perhaps this is actually quite a big target for him. So really how I see this going down is that more than likely on the Paterberg or the Arde Quermont, I do expect Wout van Aert to attack to more than likely try and drop Mads Pedersen, because I think that's the person who's most likely to beat Wout van Aert in a sprint here. So that will be Wout van Aert's kind of intentions here. And then he will likely attack on the Paterberg and then kind of consolidate that on the Arde Quermont. But to follow him, I do think that we'll see Senechal follow Wout van Aert, and I think we'll also see either somebody like Mohoric and Valgren or something like that also join that group and form a quartet for the last, what will that be, 40 kilometres of the race, and more than likely those four will contest the finish. So therefore my podium prediction for this race is going to be Wout van Aert to win, and then we're going to have Senechal in second place, and then in third place I'm going to say Valgren is going to finish in third place. Let me know in the comments down below how you think the race is going to pan out. Are there any surprise riders that you think could pop up that I haven't mentioned? Who do you think is going to finish on the podium? Just let me know any kind of race scenarios that you think could happen in the comments down below. And yeah, all that is left to say is to keep safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Salut!